Right. Okay. Now recording. Okay. So hello and welcome to this virtual event for the School of Arts virtual showcase. So we're joined here today with Elan, Tim and Juan. And thank you so much for being here to my three guests. I'm super excited to pick your brains and hear what you have to offer in inspiration and advice and just about your journeys with writing. So I think I was going to do a little bit of like a spiel introducing you, but I think perhaps it's a little better if you don't mind introducing yourselves and just giving us a little bit of who you are and what you're into, and then we'll get into some questions. So anyone want to go first?
I go first if it's on alphabetical order. I don't go first if it's on a height order, though. I shouldn't think so. I'm happy to kick off, folks, if that's useful. Hello, everyone. My name's Tim Atkins. Teach creative writing, of course, at Roehampton. In terms of talking about myself, Juan and Elan, I don't know if you ever feel uncomfortable standing up and boasting about your work, but it's always quite a kind of weird thing to do. So I will do, however. I've got 26 books out because I'm an old person. I write a lot. Primarily, I'm a poet. Have written a novel, have written a play, which is a particular type of play. I don't know if that would be a particular interest in as much as there's a genre of playwriting called poets plays. And that was performed in King's Cross about 7 or 8 years ago. My main kind of lineage as a writer is the kind of North American avant-garde, New American poetry tradition, which I would say I'm part of. For a long time was editor of the online poetry magazine On Edit, which you can still, that's a kind of, what's the word, commercial for it. You can still have a look at On Edit to see the type of world that my writing existed among. And I love writing, I love teaching. Both seem like a huge privilege given what a fucked up world it is. And being here to talk this afternoon with everyone, neither of who, Juan and Elan, I don't know much about either of your work. So I'm here to listen and learn as well. So I guess that's my story.
Oh, thank you. Oh, and we've just been joined by someone else. Welcome. We're just doing some introductions. So I'll just pass on. Do you want to carry on, Juan?
Well, okay, let me be the second. My name is Juan Orlando Perez Gonzalez. It's a very long name because I am Cuban. And many years ago, more than I care to remember, and I'm not going to say when, I decided to study journalism in the University of Havana. My mother said, "Are you really sure it's that sensible and wise?" And I said, yeah, it is. So I studied journalism and I graduated. I worked as a journalist in Cuba for a number of years. I taught at the University of Havana and then came to Britain in 2000 to continue my studies. I did a MA and a PhD here. I taught journalism at the University of Sunderland, worked briefly for the BBC. Over the years, I have written a lot of journalism, mainly for Cuban and Latin American magazines, mainly in Spanish. I have written in English, but mainly academic stuff. And on terms of my subjects, pretty much everything. When I first entered a newspaper in Havana, they asked me, "What do you want to write about?" And I said, "Of course, I want to write about art and the theater." And they said, "Nope, you are going to write crime." So I got assigned to crime, and for the next 2 years, I was writing about all sort of really ugly, nasty people. But that was good training. And my preference will be to write, as I do whenever I have the freedom to do so, about politics, travel, literature, and still theater and the arts.
Fabulous, thank you. Should we pass on to Elan if you want to have a go?
Yes, thanks, Edie. Yeah, just a disclaimer. I'm on hay fever medication, and the only one I had in the house was about 6 months expired. So I'm still waiting to see what the effects are. But so far, I'm a bit groggy, so I'm not entirely clear on what I'm saying. Apologies in advance. Yeah, so I'm a screenwriter. I teach at a senior lecturer in film at Roehampton, but very much in the specialization of screenwriting. Second year, third year, and now coming up in September, the new MA in screenwriting, which I'm excited about. And I see some students joining us, hiding in the background there, and maybe it's welcome, guys. Yeah, I mean, path has been a kind of circuitous one. I actually lived in London a long time ago in the 90s, also coming through the journalistic side of things. I wasn't ever really entirely happy with journalism, and went into film, and then a lot of the stuff was writing and directing, and through the directing side of things, ended up going through development hell because, you know, nobody knows anything and everyone's always terrified about, excuse me, making films. And made my, you know, did postgraduate study, you know, PhD and stuff, which you need to be able to teach these days, unfortunately. But my main body, the stuff where I felt I gained the most was being lucky enough to be in many, many, many screenwriting workshops with, you know, professionals in the industry, producers, writers, directors, story editors. And it's a lot of that, all the kind of information is pulled from that and then sort of squeezed out through the ministry into my own teaching. So I believe very strongly in knowledge transfer. So all that knowledge that I gained, I was lucky enough to gain, I like to then pass on to young people. And I just really like watching young writers flourishing. You know, just going from second year into third year and just seeing how work develops is extremely rewarding. So my main angle is into in narrative screenwriting. That's the main thing I do.
Well, thank you so much. Sorry that I did make you speak for yourselves and do a little bit of a boast, but it's amazing. I'm so glad that I have the three of you here to pick your brains. So the first question that I thought of when I was trying to think of things to ask was, I wanted to just know, is there a professional person or just someone in your life that you think of when someone asks you who inspired you? Is there someone that inspires you that springs to mind? And you can sort of say perhaps it's something, a group or something like that as well, but I just want to know what was something that made you go, yes, this is what I'm actually interested in? Was there anything? And should we start with Tim again, maybe?
I'm a bad person to start with because I got hundreds and hundreds of people who inspired me, in as much as, you know, when you're a kid, I was reading Marvel comics and I wanted to write Marvel comics. When I was a teenager, I was reading Leonard Cohen and kind of, you know, all kinds of stuff. Then was inspired by that kind of writing, got into poetry, read a lot of Chinese and Japanese writing, and always kind of copied these people, wanted to be in, I'm sure we're all the same, in as much as we're in conversations with our models. My life changed. I moved to San Francisco in the early 90s and met a group of writers who were my age. And so suddenly I had an audience or a target or readers who we were on the same journey together as writers. And so it's kind of, you have, for me, I have a load of elders, people who I'll always kind of, you know, kind of be in awe of. And a lot of people of my own age who we poets publish each other, kind of put on events. And so fellow travelers. So when a book comes out, I've got a new book out in a couple of months' time. So I've sent advance copies to those people, mainly in the States, but not just in the States. So that's my dynamic in terms of conversations, really.
Thank you. That's great.
Okay, well, to follow the order, well, I come from a working class background. So my sister and I were the first people in my close family to go to university. There were books in my house. We were very fortunate that our parents did have books in the house. So we started reading very early. My sister is a very good reader. I became a very good reader as well. So that was an essential influence. But in terms of my development as a writer, I will say that the key moment is when I entered university. in the Faculty of Communication of the University of Havana. We had a teacher, her name was Eloisa, is Eloisa, and she did something marvelous. Other lecturers just asked their students to write and mark them, and that was it, like a normal assignment. But we never got to see what other kids were writing, and we were a very close, quite selected, carefully selected group of students. And what Eloisa did was that she asked us to read aloud our pieces to others. And that was magic, because until then I thought, oh, I am a very great writer. I am just 18 years old, but I am a genius. And suddenly I started listening to what my classmates were writing. I said, okay, let me take a moment to reflect that they are as good, if not better than I am. So, and that was wonderful for all of us. Over the years, I learned many from my classmates, then from my colleagues at the newspapers I work. Obviously, as Tim said, you keep having those conversations with the writers that you love, with the writers that you anxiously wait for their new books, for their new articles, for the new interviews, for the new pieces. You have those conversations. Sometimes you get angry when they don't raise to your expectations, and they publish a book that is not that good as you expected. And sometimes you very often you are in awe of their talent and their skills. And at home, my partner, it's a great writer. She's a journalist, and she is my best editor, and she reads every line I write, and she is very tough.
Oh, that's great. Thank you. This is already, I'm just enjoying so much just hearing about your journeys with this. It's so interesting to me. Go ahead, Elan, if you want to.
It's nice coming third, because I had nothing when you asked the question, but thanks to Tim and Juan, I have a few things. Yeah, no, I think following on from what you guys have said, what comes to mind is kind of three things, which I'll say very quickly to not give too much time. Two are people and one is a thing. So the first thing is my dad, who sadly passed away recently, but he was a journalist his whole life, and the one advice he said to me is, look, do whatever you want in life, but don't be a journalist. So it's kind of thanks to him, no offense to you, Juan, that I just steered away from journalism. And then the second was bizarrely, this is probably going back about 20 or so years. I was in a flat in London. I needed to leave, and I needed to go somewhere else. And I just had to fill in 2 or 3 months somewhere. And I quickly got a kind of sublet in West London. And the person staying there was the nanny of the landlord, who was just kind of living there. And she was this crazy kind of crazy woman. She was Croatian. She was really, really OCD, like just would panic if you just put a glass down on the table. But I thought, oh, I'm the such a screenwriter, and I sort of let her read something. Then she absolutely destroyed me, and said, this is a pile of garbage. What about this? What about that? And it made me realize, okay, like, a bit like maybe what you were saying, Juan. Actually, maybe I don't know. Maybe I do actually need to apply myself and actually make this a craft and to, dedicate myself. So those two things kind of came together almost at the same time, leaving journalism and realizing I didn't know what I was doing, and really kind of diving headlong into it and really trying to focus on doing that one thing. And then the other thing goes a bit further back, which is growing up in Johannesburg in South Africa. It's a very hot, dry, dusty, high altitude place. And I was always very, very hot, and I hated the sunshine and so on and so forth. And my mother would drop me off. There was a place called the Victory Theatre in Johannesburg, which is one of those real flea bag places, which was theatre, cinema, theatre, bingo hall, theatre, cinema, that kind of place. And I was when I was growing up, luckily enough, it was a theatre. And for some reason, they had all these incredible prints of old films from classic Hollywood, all the Fred Astaire, Ginger Rogers, Marx Brothers, Charlie Chaplin, Hitchcock, musicals, you name it. And I would literally go every Saturday just to escape the heat, really, to go from 9 a.m. This was back in the 80s, where you could actually just leave kids. Literally, she would drop me off at 9 o'clock, and I would stay there till about 4 o'clock, and I would just watch about 3 or 4 films back to back on original prints. And that experience was the more formative to me than anything else. And that's where the die was cast in terms of inspiration. If you're talking about inspiration, there was no way I could escape the power of that beam, that dusty beam projecting these images on screen. Even the films I hated, I still loved. So I'd say those are the main things I would think about when you ask that question.
Thank you. That's so, I love it. It's so, as like a well, I'll just call, as a young person, not to say that you guys aren't young, but that whole thing of going to the cinema, the nostalgia, like that's something that I think is so romanticized for me as like someone who loves films and loves writing now. Like that whole image of going in and sitting in the little velvet seats or whatever, you know, I mean, in the
velvet seats,
yeah. So yeah, that's so nice to hear.
I do hope, just to add on, I do hope that this Corona generation, or whatever I don't want to call you, but that there is a move now towards more independent cinemas, that this unsustainable business model of these massive chains, which has been exposed by Corona, leads to more kind of community independent cinemas, because that's we just need that.
Yeah.
Much more than we need View and all these places.
And they're so much more fun. Sorry to go off, but they're so much more fun. Like some of my favorite, I grew up in a town in Faversham, and we had just Faversham Cinema, and it only had one screen. And I remember going to one of the big ones where they had 6, and I was like, what? I was like, why are there so many rooms here? This is a cinema. Like, there just should be one room with the seats, and you pull them down, and there's a bit of popcorn from the last people. So, that's a nice place to be with. So nostalgic. I love it. Okay, so next question. Sorry, I've just got them lined up, so get ready, guys. Maybe we should change the order. So Tim, do you want to go last this time so you have a bit more time? Okay, so I think this is kind of related to the last question, so don't feel a need to elaborate too much if you feel you've already answered it. But why do you feel, I'm presuming this, that written word is so important? So what drives you to write, or what do you feel is so important about like written words rather than, well, not rather than anything, but just as a form? Like what makes it special to you, if it is, which I'm presuming it is? So perhaps Juan, do you want to go first?
Well, it's a difficult question, isn't it? Let's see. Part of it has to do with my limitations. So I don't have many choices to express myself. If I could paint, maybe that will have been my destiny. If I could play sometimes I just watch an orchestra and I say, oh, I want so much to be that first violin, but that wasn't my path. So a lot has to do with my own limitations. I mean, this is the language that I acquired very early on, the one that I felt comfortable with, the one that I thought was better attuned to my personality, to my moods, to my way of being. There is also something about the written word that it's precious. You can be as naked, as open to the world as you can with words, but at the same time there is always you control how much of it very, 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 very carefully. You can hide behind your words, which is both a blessing and a terrible sin, because so many people hide behind words, and many people hide their dishonesty or their unkindness or their crimes behind words. But there's that sense. I when I was very young, I was very shy. So I wasn't the kind of kid who will be exuberating and showcasing in front of the class. So I rather adopted writing. Writing gives me time to measure my words, to ponder my thoughts, to carefully control what I say, and to try to make it as slowly, as clear and as beautiful as I can.
Fab, what a great answer. Should we go to Elan next, and then Tim will go after?
Thanks, Lizzie. Yeah, I think, again, following on from what Juan said, my late grandmother, who was an amazing woman, she was actually the first female lawyer in South Africa, and she died at age 100. She was a gambler and all sorts of things. Anyway, she once said to me, I was going to write to somebody, it was kind of like a serious letter about some kind of argument or something. And she said to me, if there's one piece of advice I can give you, and this is a lawyer speaking here, she said, don't write anything down, because words are evidence, and words are extremely powerful. you know, just the fact that Juan, like, I didn't actually realize you were from Cuba. I wasn't actually sure where you were from. The moment someone says, I'm from Cuba and I'm a journalist, your brain automatically starts making all these strange connections, right? Oh, that sounds like a dangerous thing to do, or that sounds like a good thing to do, or whatever. You know, even all the stuff we love, like whether it's theater, whether it's radio plays, movies, it's words, right? It's stuff that's written on pages and then transferred into something else. Words are extremely powerful. We know that, you know, I don't know, Ethelred the Unready died on some hill on August the 12th, 1274 or whatever it is, because somebody wrote something down. So I just think words are incredible things. I mean, it's an amazing thing as humans that you can read a line in a book and be brought to tears, you know. That's pretty amazing. Why would you not want to, you know, play with these incredible things? Because words are just this it's how we think, it's how we feel, it's how we communicate, it's how we love, it's how we breathe. There's just so much contained in, and what I love specifically about screenwriting is an incredibly mean, economical way of writing. You have to strip everything back, which means that with that economy, if you can achieve the same things just with like fewer words and fewer space, some people say, oh, but isn't it horrible to write like that? You can't go into detail, you can't describe feelings. But for me, if you can do that in this kind of visual, pared down way where 3 words say what 300 can say, it's almost like carpentry or something, where you're just, you know, fine tuning something down to the absolute perfection of what it is, sanding it away and refining it. So that's just like just a wonderful thing to because you can never quite achieve the perfection. You cannot ever achieve it. So all you can do is just keep striving for it. I think that's what really keeps us going. That constant, a bit like the surfer with the next wave, right? It's just kind of keeping going. The mystery of words. So I better stop. I'll keep.
No,
That's enough words for me.
No, that's amazing. Thank you so much. And I'll just quickly intersect here, just because I like talking too. It's funny that you say that, because I just finished listening to Bryan Cranston's audiobook of his autobiography, and it made me go back and go on YouTube, and I was watching read-throughs of the Breaking Bad script, and it was just them all sat around the table, and they were all just reading their lines off the paper, but it was like so powerful, even without all the staging, all of the everything. It was just the words, and it was like I was still captivated, sitting on my phone going, oh my god, oh, they're saying that, oh, they're going back. And it was like, so it meant a lot still without all of the, I'm not saying like faff in a bad way, but you know what I mean, all of the extra things for storytelling. But sorry, I'll pass on to you, Tim.
Partly it was interesting when Juan started and said, because I couldn't do other stuff. And while he was saying that, I was just reaching down. I can't play this. And I do play it in meetings, in Zoom meetings, but muted, of course. But all my friends when I was a kid were musicians. Quite a few wanted to be filmmakers. And I always felt kind of really, I felt sad I couldn't play any music very well at all. But I kind of feel like, you know, when you have to want to make a film, you have to make so many compromises and deals, and money's involved, and it's kind of good and bad being a poet, because I'm primarily a poet, in as much as the kind of old poet's joke is a piece of paper with no poetry on has got a certain value. A piece of paper with a poem on is worthless. And that kind of poetry and writing is interesting in that not all of it, but a lot of it is kind of concerned with kind of resistance and a kind of rejection of some kind of monetarization of the world. And so what we deal with words, and I think we've all been saying this to a certain extent, in that words contain emotions that, even though of course words are what separate us, in the way that a song or a film or piece of visual art doesn't need translating, the book is the most beautiful container of our humanity, arguably. And so, you know, what endures for me is, I remember when I was about 15 and reading Chinese poets from about 500, you know, year 500 AD, and feeling completely connected and in, like I say, in a kind of conversation with those people. And so on one level, being a writer, you feel like, oh, I can't remember who said this. There's a beautiful quote about how you, Mayakovsky, the Russian communist poet, said about how you rise from the page and address all ages and all humanity with your work. And of course, that's not just limited to writing, but being a writer, that makes me feel good about being part of that community. So that's my answer.
Oh, fabulous. Thank you. Yeah, that's so, oh, it's so like, I don't know, for a better word, I want to say like wholesome. Like, it's so true that it's just such a way to bridge and communicate with, like you said, people. I remember when I was younger reading Little Women and being completely like there. I was there, I was part of the family, I was in the room, and I was like, I think I was like under 10, and I just felt so connected. And it was like, even then it was like kind of an old book at that point, so I felt my mum had read it as well, and we connected over it. And yeah, it's so special. Right, so next question, I guess. Who wants to answer this one first? Let's see afterwards. So the next question I have is, I hope not too generic, but I wanted to know if there's a piece of advice that you would want to give to a young writer, let's say, perhaps that you received or that you just feel is like really important when trying to set off on a journey of, you know, pursuing this as like a thing that you're doing for a long time. Is there a piece of advice that you feel is pretty important or that helped you a lot with figuring all of this out? Do you want to go first, Elan?
I can go first on this one, that's fine. Yeah, it's a bit of a tricky one. I mean, I know what you mean, but it's not a generic question. It's just partly that it's every writer is different. So it's kind of hard to give one piece of advice to different writers. But what I would, I think two things jump out at me. Once I remember saying to quite a well-known director, saying, you know, it's funny how people who aren't in the industry or you know, maybe annoying parents or something will say to you, why don't you get a real job, or why don't you get a job, so on and so forth. And you have to say to them, well, this actually is a job. It's a job in the sense that I may not be being paid as much as you would like, but I'm actually working at this thing. And then this director said to me, yeah, that's fine, but then you need to prove that and actually treat it as a job and actually give it the discipline that you would were you being paid to work 9 to 5 for some company or something like that instead. So it's about developing some kind of schedule and proper discipline to make sure you actually do treat, even though it may be creative and wacky, and half the time you're just staring at a wall, or, you know, because most of writing is in the subconscious, but you do have to treat to give it that discipline, which I don't always do. I definitely don't always do. So that's one thing I try to kind of develop, whatever your discipline is, even if it's spending 8 hours sleeping and 1 hour writing, or vice versa, whatever that is, find what that discipline is and stick to it. And then I've totally forgotten what the second thing was. I went down my own rabbit hole there. But the other thing was this. There's a great line from, I think it's a Ted Hughes poem. Tim, you probably know better than I would. But he talks about working for the man, like doing a job, as opposed to being a poet or whatever. And the line is something along the lines of, mornings and evenings between Slough and Holborn, hoarding wage to fund the leap to freedom. He's talking about his daily commute, his evening commute between Slough and Holborn, right? And that line always stuck with me, hoarding wage to fund the leap to freedom. It's okay to do work. You have to do work, you have to pay the bills. But if you treat it as I'm hoarding wage to fund the leap to freedom, it's kind of like a nice, it's like just because, you know, what I'm trying to say, just because you're working for coffee shop or working for a company doesn't mean you're not a writer anymore. It's just something you're doing to keep yourself going for that. One doesn't have to supersede the other.
Yeah, I love hearing that, because that, I think there's definitely a hesitation when you're younger and you're not there to call yourself a writer, to be like, yeah, I'm a writer, because then people go, really, are you?
No, but that's the exact thing. I was actually at a dinner the other night, and for the first time in about 14 months actually seeing people, and someone said to me, I'm an actress, but it was kind of under her breath, and I said, what are you? I'm an actress. Then say I'm an actress. And I think it's absolutely important to say, you know, if you're going to go jogging, even if you're a terrible jogger, say I'm a jogger, because then you get better. And I think it's vocationally, it's important to say, especially now with this kind of late capitalist thing where students are customers and everyone has to go and get work and so on and so forth, just to keep calling yourself that, I think is really important. Doesn't matter what you're doing to pay the bills, you are a writer.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Would you like to go next, Tim?
Yeah, happy to. I've got so many different answers for this that I think what I'm going to say is that one of my fellow travelers is the poet. I've got hundreds of books right over here, and every time I want to say something, I think, oh, I want to show you that book, but I'm not going to walk away from here. But one of my favorite novelists, one of my closest writing friends, is the American novelist Laird Hunt. And he had above his desk for many years his own advice to himself. And they were 2 points. And point number 1 said, write more. And I think the secret of writing is to write. You know, I mean, when you're young, you don't have much and you hoard it and you kind of do all of that, polishing it. And the secret of writing is write, just write endlessly. And his second point is be kind. And I think that's a really beautiful point for us as writers, in as much as be kind to yourself, take yourself seriously, be kind to yourself. I get students who come and see me and say, I'm really struggling with this. And they never expect me to say what I do say, which is I kind of say, well, look, if you hate it, why don't you give up? Why don't you stop? If it's not important for you, if it's causing you pain, don't do it. And so the business of kind of be kind, look at what is good and interesting for you in the world and follow your passion. And back to point 1, write more. Yeah. And so that's my advice. Oh, no, it's not. It's Laird's advice.
No, I love that. That's definitely one that I feel like I want to take on myself, because I think, especially if you're a little bit of a perfectionist, you can just sit, or just reread and never, and being kind to yourself as well, because when you're being so harsh on your own, right, you're like, oh, why am I even doing this? I'm no good. But then it's like, you have to practice like anything, don't you? Sorry, Juan, do you want to carry on?
No, you're absolutely right. I must say, there was a moment when I was young, when I first saw the handwriting poems of one of the greatest Cuban writers, who was at some point close to win a Nobel Prize. And as a young student, I had always seen the published poems. And it was a shock to me how much work he had put on a few verses, how he had considered certain words, certain sounds, certain rhymes for days on end until he got it right. So there is an element to the art of writing, which is writing a lot, but like everything that it's done well, you have to put time on it. you have to put time on it, and in journalism, it's not always easy to find that time. That's why so much journalism is tried. It's rushed. It's of very low literary quality because it was done by very smart people in just a few minutes against a deadline under the pressure of grumpy editors. So there is so much that you can do. But I tell to my students, whenever you have the time, whenever you are writing for a magazine, if you have a little bit more of time, and you can work better on the structure of your piece, on the tone, on the vocabulary, do it. Do it. Don't rush to publish. Take a moment to reflect. Leave the piece, wait for a day or two, rest for a day or two, and then get back to it and look at it. I will say, well, the history of journalism and literature is full of great writers and great journalists giving advice. I mean, that's what you do when you become a famous writer. You give advice to new writers. And the truth is that everyone follows his or her own path. Everyone becomes, some people have been told to be succinct and to avoid excess of words and to avoid flourishes. And some other people write brilliant literary castles out of excessive words, out of the exuberance of language. So everyone has to follow a path. But I will say something that I tell my students, and sometimes they get surprised by it. I say the history of literature and of journalism is full of people who can put two words together. But the key thing is not just the ability to put two nice words together, it's the ability to say something that is worth saying. To say something that is new, originally fresh, beautiful, that somehow is worth saying, that is not just a lame repetition of what other people have said endlessly. So I tell my students, leave, leave, leave. Fill your head with scenes, with ideas. Some of them will be confusing, some of them will be scary, some of them will be absurd. You will grow out of them, but leave. You need to be someone interesting in order to write interesting. You can be a very good scribe and know everything about the English or the Spanish language. If you don't have anything to say, no one will read you.
Gosh, that was very true. I feel like that's one of the things, like as like a young person trying to write more and more, that is one thing that the copying thing, I think you said something about copying earlier, Tim, and it made me think how that was, I almost went, oh, I want to ask straight away, like how do you avoid just copying people, especially with I'm thinking with myself, with I'll watch a great film and then I'll be like, oh, I've got this great idea, I'm gonna write a script about da da da, and then I sit down and look at it and I'm like, this is literally the film I just watched. I've just like renamed the characters and put them in a slightly different setting, but it's like the exact same point, you know? So I think that's so resonant to say, like, make sure you have something to say, because otherwise, you know, you're just, well, keep writing, but make sure you have something to say, which, yeah, that really resonates with me.
Could I just tag on to that, Edie? Because I remember once in amongst some workshop dealing with an intellectual property lawyer who'd come onto the script workshop, because a lot of writers will say, well, how do I protect my ideas? And his thing was, well, you can't copyright an idea, but you can copyright the way that idea is managed and treated and presented. You know, so you know, Mozart might be in the public domain, but the 1994 Warsaw Philharmonic's version of whatever is copyrighted. So it's a bit like, yes, you know, live and write things, but that example you just gave of you watched a film and you realize, oh my God, it's exactly the same thing. That happens all the time, right? I mean, you know, Alien is Jaws in space, famously, it's that kind of thing. But it's the treatment, it's the package that you put it in, which has your own personal take on it that makes it yours and makes it unique. There's only so many stories, so many characters. So I think it's okay to copy as long as it's then kind of percolated through your own life experience and your own personal take on it, your own angle.
Yeah, exactly. Which is why I live, so that you have a viewpoint, you have a perspective. Yeah, that's amazing. Thank you so much.
Can I just add to that? My little extra as well is, I mean, if you think about anything that you write as being like a soup, and you know, everyone's going to make the same gazpacho or the same tomato soup, but it's the balance of the ingredients. It's kind of like, you know, it's about the particularities of your experience. If you were writing Jaws in Space, but it was written by someone from West London, you're going to write it differently from someone from Newcastle, Havana, Johannesburg, Tokyo, you know, wherever. And so that kind of business of whatever you produce, the more ingredients that you're working with, aware of, paying attention to. That's what makes the soup different, but it's still soup.
Yeah, I love the soup analogy. I'm getting a little bit hungry though, so let's avoid food analogies. No, I'm joking. Okay. Oh, this. I'm just checking the time. We've got about 15 minutes, so I'll just see what we can put in. So one thing that I was interested in as well is from your. Sorry, let me just think how to phrase this exactly. So over the time that you have been, I guess, in this world, in whatever world of writing or the world of writing, if we're going to generalize, what I've been really curious about is related to what Elan was saying about the cinemas. How do you feel? Are there any sort of commentaries, I guess, that you want to make on how the industry has changed? Do you get what I'm saying? So perhaps when you first started out and you were first trying to get into writing and into doing whatever, and how you feel if you were starting now, how different do you feel it would be, and what are the differences that you feel? Because I think for someone like me, it's very romanticized, it's very nostalgic, but I don't actually know what it was like before, and so I'm intrigued to see what you have to say about that. Do you want to go first, Tim?
Okay. 15 minutes, you say, Edie. What was terrible when I was growing up was English literature, written by white middle-class people from the south of England, writing about their mortgages and affairs. In the UK, writers of any kind of variety. I mean, even being white middle-class from north of Birmingham precluded you a lot of the time. So the world is way better now in the world that we're in, I guess, primarily in the UK, is much more open, generous. There are more places where writers of all different sexualities, classes, outlooks, are available. We have these much wider lenses that we can go out into the world as, and also with the internet, of course, you can be published and read in wherever, in the way that poetry, when I was growing up, you'd do a book in an edition of 200, it would sell out in 200 years, and that was it. And so the way we can communicate and the ability to communicate more widely and more generously is great. What is terrifying now is the monetization of all of our crafts. I despair about the fact that people who say they want to write poetry have to come up with employability plans. An employability plan for a poet, you certainly don't say to a poet, buy a lot of absinthe and live a really foul life, because the romanticism of your craft is equally ridiculous. But the linking of metrics of assessment for people's creativity and the value which an artist both contributes to the world and gains from the world has been absolutely prostituted to the nth degree by neoliberalism, the government, the academy, and all its filthy operatives. And we resist as well as we can as free, independent, creative human beings, and long may that continue. I'll stop there.
No, that was extremely succinct, and I feel like I got a lot from it, so thank you. Who wants to go? I mean, I don't mind. Who wants to go next?
I will.
Yeah?
Tim has just said one of the most horrifying things I have heard in a long, long time. It never crossed my mind that there was something like employability for poets. It's truly a monstrosity. I thought that if you were a poet, the fact that you will starve was assumed that you will not be rich in this life, at least. Well.
That's because you don't have a business plan. That's why.
Yes, because you don't have a business plan. Tell that to the romantics. Well, I am I can subscribe pretty much what Tim said. In terms of my lifetime in journalism it's a brutal industry, which produces a lot of good and produces a lot of destructive forces and messages and power. I'm not going to deliver a dissertation on what journalism does and how journalism is essential to the establishment and to the hegemony of ruling political groups. But just reflecting on my life, on my lifetime, I entered university in 1990, and at that time we didn't have computers in the school. Even when I started working in a newspaper, I was still typing my stories in the type machine. So it's amazing for me that in the space of less than 30 years, I am where I am, having this conversation with you via Zoom from my home. Uh, I think something obviously journalism is in crisis, is in a moment of great turbulence. The industry is changing quite rapidly. The relationship between journalism and the media with the public, with the readers, with the spectators, with the audiences is changing quite dramatically. When I published my first piece in a newspaper in Havana, um, I walk out of the newspaper the next day, and I saw a man reading the paper in the bus, and I wanted to rush to him and say, "I wrote that, I wrote that." But at that time, we were. I didn't have a measurement of what that man will think of my article, what his opinion of my work will be. We were pretty much very arrogant. We will just write whatever we wanted and publish it, and the public will have to read it or not, but we were untouched by that. And the internet changed that because the internet gave the readers the ability to respond. And believe me, they do respond. The way the responses are instrumentalized, operationalized, monetized by the industry and other people, it's another discussion. But there's something profoundly revolutionary about the fact that people can respond, the fact that people can reply, that you put something on The Guardian and there will be 100 or 1,000 people in the next 2 days challenging you, calling your lies out, amending your mistakes, and participating in debate that sometimes can be quite mean-spirited, but sometimes can be actually very, very positive and very constructive and very revolutionary. And I find that for all the problems and the fears and the scares that we get from the internet, there is something profoundly revolutionary about that change of perspective, about people having the possibility to have their voice and not just hear the voice of what Tim very well described as middle-aged, white, straight people writing for the whole world to listen.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Wow, it's so, because I've grown up in a world where there's always been comments on articles which are online. It's crazy for me to imagine that there was a time when no one was replying to the news. It's like, or to journalism or any kind of journalistic writing. There's always someone underneath going, hang on a second, where did you get this, and why do you think that, and so that's so interesting to hear. Sorry, Elan, do you want to go?
No, it's fine. Yeah, I mean, just to, I guess, tagging onto the back of what Tim and Juan have been talking about from a cinema perspective, it's kind of similar. I mean, you know, I think about films growing up and then going into when I was a film student a long time ago, and just how it very much felt like there was this massive kind of wall, like, I don't know, the gates of Helm's Deep, or I don't know what the right analogy is, but this kind of wall up there. And if you were going to do a film where you had to kind of work out ways to kind of dig your hands into the bricks and find the right footing, and maybe you would get over the wall. I mean, that is still very much the case, but I do think that for all the problems that we have with the internet and so on and so forth that one talks about, what it has given, in a way, I almost feel like film students now are at the most intimidating time in history for a film student, but also at the most opportune, because when I was there, it was almost like you didn't have any means to really make things. You know, I couldn't afford a camera or film stock or my own, you know, crew or anything like that. So you just kind of have to scrabble about. But you have so many outlets now, so many different methods of dissemination, from TikTok to YouTube to Netflix. It's just the whole model of filmmaking has changed, that rather than spending 8 years on a film where you get different pieces of funding from 17 different organizations, Netflix can come along and say, here's $1 million, go and make the thing. It'll be ours at the end of it, but go and make it. And I do think that you know, if young people could just find, it goes back to what we were saying earlier, just find your little niche, find what it is that you really love to do. And then it could just be music videos, it could be presenting it could be doing little shorts on TikTok, whatever it is, you know, being an influencer, I don't know. But you know, you can use the skills that you would ordinarily use, that you get from I think transferable skills coming out of a film degree or writing degree are so much more relevant now than they were 20 years ago, because then it was just, look, you're going to go and you're going to be a runner, and you're going to, you know, I was a runner once upon a time. It was a 2-day shoot. On the first day, I got heat exhaustion. On the second day, I got hypothermia. It was that kind of work. You're just going to go and you're going to be a runner, and you're just going to wait 20 years before somebody actually learns your name, kind of thing. I think now, you know, younger people have so much, like you know, just to be able to kind of, I'm going to form, there's nothing stopping you, for example, Edie, from saying, right, I'm going to form a production company with some of my peers. I know a producer, I'm an actor, I know some other actors, I know a good writer. We're going to form this network, and we're going to start producing content. And you could literally shoot, edit, and upload it within 1 day. And that is just a completely foreign world to my kind of generation, where the gatekeeping was that much more efficient. It's a problem in a sense, what Tim was touching on, in that so much is monetized and commercialized, which is not a good thing. But at least it means you can get content out there and get it seen, and it goes viral. So I would say, don't be, it is intimidating, this kind of flooding of everything with content. Like, how does your head rise above all that? The beauty is, your head doesn't actually have to rise above everything. It just needs to be kind of out there, and just you know, there's lots of fish in the sea, but just sort of jump into the water and just be amongst all the other fish, right? So, you know, don't sort of compare it to something that it was. This is just the way things are now. That old model is gone. And I just think there are actually a lot of different opportunities for lots of different kinds of professions within the film industry. It's become much more fragmented into different kinds of roles. And so what you're doing today won't necessarily be what you're doing in 5 years' time, and that's fine.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and I think that's so true what you were saying about, because with the fact that it is more possible to create things, there is so much being made all the time, like on the internet, and it's everywhere. And like, you know, if you've grown up in sort of my generation, it's like you've had a phone where you've been watching videos constantly, you know, the whole time. So there's so much. And I think some people, myself included, sometimes you're like, well, there's so much out there, so if I'm going to do this, I've got to be the best thing that's happened for this amount of time, when really it's like, you don't have to be the best of the, you know, you don't have to completely burst out of this huge mass.
Well, I guess I just mean that can kind of cripple your ambition and say, well, if I unless I'm the best, no one's going to see me, so I may as well not bother. Mm-hmm. But I just think it's a bit like, you know what Tim was saying, right. It's just like, dude, just make the stuff. You know, I don't know if you feel intimidated by the amount of stuff out there. I mean, I do. But at the same time, you know, as I said, there's less gatekeeping than there was 20, 30 years ago. I feel like there is in a way. I don't know. I hope so anyway.
Yeah. No, I totally agree. No, it's like there's so much opportunity, but there's so much choice, and there's so much going on that it's like overwhelming, but also you can do it. So yeah, I think we're pretty much getting to 3 o'clock. So there's the other guest that we have is named Amber and Beatrice. So I'm not sure if there's someone there, and if they have a question before we go. Just give them opportunity. No? Okay, maybe not. But we've got 2 minutes left, so I think we'll stop there, because it's I've been smiling for an hour straight, and I need to go and frown at something for an hour now. So yeah, thank you so much for this event. It's been so enjoyable for me, and I'm sure for the future audience who is going to watch this. Thank you, Amber and Beatrice. Thanks for coming. Yeah, thank you so much, guys, and I've learned so much, and I really appreciate your time and doing the work to organize this with me as well. I know it's been a lot of emailing backwards and forwards, so thank you so much, and have a lovely day. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Thanks everyone. Okay.